Welcome to another episode of Heal and Shift. I'm your host, Sunita Passi, and my guest today is Swami Saradananda, who is a world-renowned specialist in yoga and meditation. And for the last more than 40 years, I should say, she's taught yoga and meditation in accordance with the ancient texts. And also her own findings at her school in the UK, in London, and internationally. And Swami Saradananda, she also holds seminars in the UK and India, and she's also the author of 7 books now, including The Power of Breath, which is one of my favorites, Mudras for Modern Life, Life Chakra Meditation, Cleansing Power of Yoga, Essential Guide to Chakras, and Relax and Rejuvenate with Yoga. So we'll get to hear more about her books and actually her new book, her latest book, which is Sitting Comfortably, Preparing the Mind and Body for Peaceful Meditation. Those of you, and also I should say, as a teacher and trainer, sharing these ancient tools with the world, she also developed and facilitated the meditation teacher training programs for the Shivananda Centres that you'll find in many countries around the world. And she actually worked with the Shivananda Centres for around 30 years. And those of you who are new to this podcast, so the Heal and Shift podcast is really about your journey to healing. It's a podcast that I've been hosting for 2.5 years now, since we went into the lockdown initially. And I've been sharing insight from really incredible speakers, experts in healing and transformation, who are bringing you a different vision of how things can be done to support your path towards health and healing. So we cover things like releasing, restoring, rejuvenating, and retraining your mind, body, and soul for health and equilibrium. And myself, I'm an author, an Ayurvedic practitioner, and the founder of Tri-Dosha. And I came across Swami Saradananda many, many years ago when I was still living in London. And I actually completed my meditation teacher training with her 10 years ago now. Can't believe it. So I am also very familiar with her teachings, with the way that she practices, and also her vision to bring these tools to as many people as possible. So welcome, Swami. Can I call you Swami? Yes. Yeah, great. So if you've an interesting story, I'm familiar with some of the background. So can you tell us a bit about yourself and firstly, the catalyst for writing this new book?
Well, you mentioned that the Teach Meditation course that I do, and I've been teaching it for about 15 years now. And in that time, I always make notes of the complaints and problems that people have. And I found that a lot of people who think they want to meditate don't actually do it because of certain basic reasons, like their knees hurt, their back hurts, their mind is too restless. So that's actually the basis of this book. And I wanted to call it Prepare to Meditate. But apparently the publisher didn't think that was a great title. So we called it Sitting Comfortably. And that actually comes from one of the verses in the Yoga Sutra, which says, when you sit for meditation, your seat should be comfortable and steady.
Yeah, and I think that's one of for many people who are coming to meditation as a new practice, this is the most difficult aspect. It's the monkey mind, the thoughts not sitting still, but that's actually not what meditation is about. You're always going to get thoughts. You're always going to get all sorts of things going through your mind. So how do you, what's your, thought process as you were writing the words for this book?
Well, it's really looking at every aspect of life, because I consider yoga actually an entire lifestyle. And I have quite an extensive chapter in the book on diet. And most of the people who have reviewed the book or interviewed me about the book, that's the one chapter that they're always amazed by, because it's something that they never thought of, that your food affects how you can sit to meditate. I know a lot of times people say, oh, my mind is so jumpy, I don't think I could meditate. And then I ask them, well, how many cups of coffee do you drink in a day?
Yeah.
And they don't put it together. 8 cups of
Mm.
coffee, my mind is really jumpy. But then when they start to think about it, they realize, oh yeah, maybe if I just reduce the coffee, I'd be healthier and I would be more peaceful and I could sit for meditation. So it's really looking at every aspect of life, of
Yeah.
modern life.
Yeah. So this is, I know this is what this is the new book, and this is what the content that really guides people, which, when you told me the title and when you told me what the book was about, I thought that's exactly what the world needs, because that, the more of us meditating, the more of us in this space, the more of us doing it regularly, ultimately we are, we get to help everybody around us, because the calmer, more collected we are, the more grounded we feel, better decisions we make. It all overspills, and it overspills into our family life and also our communities as well. But what inspired you to pursue this path? Because I've known you for over 10 years now. You've been, for the last more than 40 years, you've been, teaching and on this path. And some might say, quite, I mean, it's a very specific path, isn't it, to take? So what ignited that fire for you?
Well, when I was a child, to go all the way back, is I was quite sick as a child. I had polio and I was actually paralyzed. And the doctors told my parents I'd never be able to walk. And my mother used to say that the reason I could walk was because I was too young to understand the doctors. So I just kept trying to walk, and eventually I could walk. And then they tried to tell me, oh, you can't do physical exercise because you might fall and hurt yourself. And I found that the opposite was true, that if I didn't do physical exercise, my balance would get really bad. Whereas if I did do something, my balance would improve. And then when I first started doing yoga, well, actually, I was just looking for some kind of physical exercise to do. And I saw an ad in a newspaper for a yoga class. And this is, it's back in the 60s even. Mm. And I did it. I started doing asanas, the physical exercise. And I found that of all the exercises I had tried, it's the one type of exercise that really helped me more than any other. And then if I practiced regularly, I wouldn't sort of, have bad balance. I mean, I literally used to sometimes just trip and fall over nothing, so I had to keep that exercise, and I found yoga really helped me. And then I met my teacher, who was a man named Swami Devananda. And he introduced me to meditation and the philosophy of yoga. And I found that not only was my body benefited, but I just felt so much more peaceful in my life. And that's why when people ask me, do you think I should try to meditate? I always think, saying, why should you meditate? Is like saying, well, why do I want to be happy? I mean, we all want to be happy. And with a meditation practice, I just found myself so much more peaceful and happy.
Yeah, well, that's more than enough reason to want to then be a guide and spread the word. And it's taken you all over the world. I know you stayed with that teacher, and you developed certain programs, and so for many years you were teaching. But let's start by talking about what actually is meditation to you. You're talking about the feelings, but actually, what is it as a tool?
Well, I think meditation is the experience that you have when your mind is really focused. See, we all can focus our mind for short periods. We can all focus on things we like to do. Like even say you like chocolate. just eating a piece of chocolate for, I don't know, 5 minutes or 3 minutes, and you feel really happy because your mind is focused on the chocolate. And then you're not focused. So you think, oh, the chocolate makes me happy. But actually, it's not the chocolate. It's the fact that your mind is focused. Because if it's the chocolate, then 10 chocolates should make you 10 times as happy. But we all know it doesn't work. You see,
Yeah.
if you sit and meditate and you train your mind to be peaceful, right? So you don't have the trigger of the chocolate. You don't need the trigger of the chocolate. You just have the ability to make your mind really focused. So I would say meditation is the experience you have when your mind is really peaceful and focused.
And it's becoming very fashionable in Western society now. I think, the last 10 to 15 years, we've seen so many apps being developed. We've seen more people in, mainstream society have talking about it, written articles, even books, even. We see a lot of, certainly in the business world, more CEOs, leaders taking up meditation to help them, support them as they make very big decisions, and I guess help them just maybe expand their thought process so they're not so full of the stresses and the strains. And some would say, that since we've also come out of lockdown, that there is a spiritual awakening taking place. There's a real shift in society, and this isn't just happening here in the UK. This is happening all over the world. So can you share some thoughts on this, and where does meditation fit in to that idea?
Well, I don't know about a global awakening, but I've noticed that I have many more people wanting to do my meditation courses. And of course, pranayama, the breathing exercises, has become very, very popular. So I think people are awakening to the fact that there is something they can do about their own health. If you're sitting in a flat or a house, you're not just locked in, but you're really given the opportunity to work with yourself. And I think a lot of people have taken advantage of that opportunity. So hopefully the trend continues.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So you're teaching a lot more online now, which is, again, it's, this whole new way of working, again, triggered by the last few years, so many of us working in different ways, which means you can reach more students. I know you have students from Europe, from America, from UK. And, when you're holding that space for your students, what are some of the key pressures that you can see people are feeling, going through, and how are you supporting that with what you're teaching?
Well, I think one of the pressure, of course, is the physical pressure, of our physical environment. Like we had so many things to worry about before, and now we're worried about viruses in the air. So it's another thing to worry about. But I think if you tell people that there's something they can do about it. Like just this morning, I taught a Kriya class, a cleansing, yoga cleansing exercises. And, if you're worried about what's in the air, when you come in, why don't you do some cleansing things so that even if you breathe something in that's negative, maybe you can get rid of it. And of course, the pranayama, where you can strengthen your respiratory system so that, you're more apt not to catch what's in the air. So I think yoga can really help in that way. Yeah. And of course, if you ask people why they want to do yoga, they all say, because I'm stressed out.
That's where it starts. I think for a lot of people, that's where it starts. And but as certainly through my practice, through years of meditating now, you go through, it's extraordinary, because it starts there. It's like we're looking for something. We're looking to be nourished in some way. We're looking to be a tool that will help us ground. But ultimately, there's this mental transformation that takes place over time. And I feel I've undergone a complete metamorphosis, is that the right way of saying it? Over these years. So for me, I was nowhere near meditation. I was actually, my journalism days was on a project in India, and I walked into a meditation shop in Hansel Plaza, in the shopping centre, Hansel Plaza. And what and there the meditation teacher, the Swami, started talking to me about the retreats that they were running, and the shop was filled with books, and I think whatever he said in that moment, it was exactly what I needed. So, and that's been my experience when I talk to people about meditation and how meditation has come into their life. Often there's this, it's not just one specific moment, it's a feeling that they can be nourishing themselves better, looking after themselves better in some sort of way, expanding their awareness, and all of these things help us on our development path. One of the books that you've written, The Power of Breath, I recommend to all of our students. So it's on our reading list. And I love this book. I love the way it's written. I love the way it's presented. It's so easy to follow. It's so easy to follow all of the exercises and how it's all laid out. And now breath work is also becoming very popular in the West. We've got some, very big teachers that have huge platforms, taking breath work forward, taking a lot of these ancient tools forward in a new way, which is quite interesting. So can you tell us what's the difference between where does breath work come into this?
Come into what?
Come into the meditation tools. So if somebody they're looking at meditation, getting an understanding of pranayama. So then how does the breath work actually fit in to this wonderful toolbox?
Yeah, because I sometimes do an experiment with students, and maybe since you've done my course, you remember this experiment. And I just tap. I don't know if you can hear that, but I tap quite loudly. And then I get softer and softer and faster. And I notice everyone will hold their breath, because the more you concentrate, the more you hold your breath. So the mind and the breath are very closely connected. So whenever you're stressed and agitated, there's that old thing, just take a deep breath. But it's actually true that if you could take a deep breath, you wouldn't actually be so stressed. Now, of course, the problem is that most people don't breathe properly. So even when they're relaxed, they can't take a deep breath. So how are they going to take a deep breath when they're stressed? So our whole environment, modern life, is very stressful. And we can't just keep hoping it's going to get less stressful, because it's not. Things are getting faster and faster. So what we can do is make ourselves better able to deal with the stress. And one really good way, of course, is with the breath. If we can control our breaths, we can control our minds much better. I'm not saying you can control it completely, but better.
Yeah. And I really find, I think out of the books that you've written, actually The Power of Breath is a very, very nice book to start with if you're completely new to this way of thinking and living. It's something that is very, you can integrate into your life. Immediately you can understand that I'm breathing shallow, I'm breathing from my chest and not from my diaphragm. Immediately you can understand that when you look at a little baby and you see the diaphragm moving up and down, that's exactly how we want to continue to breathe in life. But because of the busyness and everything that's going on around us all the time, we start to shallow breathe. So that's what I really love. I think it's anyone who's new to this, this path, or considering, what tools they can start to focus on. And I think this is a really good place to start.
Hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. And so one of the things, again, with all the changes that have been happening in society in the last few years, is preventative healthcare. It's a hot topic these days. And more and more people are looking for, to create healthy habits that last. So you, as an expert in meditation, in breath work, in yoga, how would you translate that for just regular folk? What does that look like for somebody who's got a busy family life, working 5 days a week? What does that look like for them?
This might seem a little off the topic, but in Germany, if you go to a yoga class, you have to pay for health insurance. But if you go for a yoga class, the insurance company will pay 80% of the cost of the class. Because they find that if people go for yoga classes, they get sick so much less, and then the insurance company has to pay out so much less money. So for them, it's a good investment to get people to go to yoga classes. And unfortunately, we don't have the same thing here in the UK. And people always worry about, I don't have time for this. But if you think about it as an investment, like if you invest even 15 minutes a day, but then you feel better for the rest of the day, you're more productive for the rest of the day, you don't have to take as much time off because you're sick. And also, with people who are carers, like a lot of times students say, I feel guilty about taking time to nurture myself because I feel guilty about taking the time away from my family. But if you nurture yourself first, then you have more quality to give to your family. They say it's better to give than receive, but that's like saying it's better to breathe out than to breathe in. It's not possible. You've got to breathe in, you've got to nurture yourself first, and then you can give. So if you're a caregiver, you have a family, or even at work, you can give like so much more if you take care of yourself and your own health first. So I think people should see it as an investment.
Yeah, I think that's really important, and I think it's something it's in our own hands. So all you've got to do is turn that tap on, make that decision that you are going to start with a short practice, 10 minutes a day, and then just slowly build up. And before you, again, my experience and many of my friends who have, long meditation practices, it's not been something that happened overnight, but over time, you just in that space, you're just in that zone, you're living a meditative life, you're living an aware life, a conscious life. And I liked actually what you said at the beginning about how, for many of us, we don't understand actually what we're eating and drinking has an impact on our state of being, and how absolutely, too much coffee is going to leave you frazzled. And just reducing that's a very simple daily routine that, again, anyone can start to comprehend and think about. So what advice would you offer to somebody who's maybe tried to implement some of these practices but found it really difficult? That's really what your new book is about. How can they get the confidence back to make those changes?
Well, I think most people, they get really inspired and they try to do everything. And then, of course, they can't do everything. They can't keep it up. So they give up everything. So I think it's to do a little and then to add a little more. So you make a habit. See, so you do a little bit, and when that becomes a habit, then you add a little more and a little more and a little more. See, but I think the biggest mistake people make is they're too extreme.
Yeah.
They try to do an hour of asanas, yoga exercises, and pranayama and meditation, change their diet, stop smoking, everything at the same time. And of course, it's impossible.
It's overwhelming.
Mm. Yeah, so try and do a bit and then add a bit more.
Yeah. And can you give any examples of success stories, maybe students you've worked with or clients you've worked with, where it was very uncomfortable for that person at the beginning, or those people at the beginning, but over time you've seen them implement these changes, and they've made it last, and that's really showing up in their life now?
Maybe one funny story, a little fun. I had a woman in class, and it was a meditation course. And part of the meditation course was to sort of challenge yourself. So each week you were supposed to do one thing that was a little difficult. And I said, please, not food, because I found that when I first had people do this, everyone stopped eating chocolate for the week. So I said, try and do something more creative. So this one woman took a very interesting thing. She said that whenever she went into a restaurant, for some reason, they always brought her the wrong thing. She'd order, and they'd always bring the wrong thing. But she didn't want to make a scene, so she would never say anything. So her difficult thing to do for the week was to say. And she came back to class the next time, a few weeks later, and she said, it was amazing. She went into this restaurant, she ordered something, the wrong thing came. She said to the waiter, I'm sorry, this is not what I ordered. And of course, she said it politely. And she said, the amazing thing was there was no scene. And he didn't get upset. He just said, oh, I'm really sorry. And he took it back and changed it, which is what most people would expect to happen. But she was like so nervous that she would never say anything. But the interesting thing was that she wrote to me like maybe a few months later, and she said, since that time when I actually said it to the waiter, it never happened again.
Wow. So there was a shift in energy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think even simple, very small things really change your energy in a positive way.
Yeah, absolutely. I really, that is, that's reason for all of us to be taking up a practice, isn't it? Because that to me, that's also another example of her energy, the energy changing, and then she was able to tap. She had stronger boundaries, and she was showing up in a much more impactful way in her life as well. So just imagine what that can look like over time, and with all of these practice, it absolutely, whether whatever, if you're a believer in, you have a faith or you don't, or it's not about that at all. It's the connection with the deeper self, and how we can be aligned to that version of ourselves. And I think when we're living these such busy lives, particularly in the West, less so in the East, but that's also changing as well, that there's just so many layers to us. And I've just found the process of meditation has just been able to just bring me back to my authentic self. It's like peeling away these layers over time, and and being able to show up, as you say, in your most authentic way. So I mean, do you have anything to say about that, how it assists in that way?
Well, I think it's taking responsibility for your own life. I know sometimes in class people will say, "Oh, my doctor won't let me do that." And I never let them get away with that, because I say, you know, your doctor is a consultant. And of course, you should consult your doctor, maybe listen to what he or she has to say, but it's your life. Take responsibility. You know, so if the person says, "Oh, my doctor advised me not to do that, I prefer not to do it," well, that's fine, because you're making the choice. But don't say, "My doctor won't let me do that," or "My husband won't let me do that," or "My lawyer won't let me do that," whatever. See? So I think it's important to take responsibility for your own life.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That would absolutely be my message as well, is that it's very easy to hand your sense of your authority over, but yeah, taking responsibility is absolutely the way forward, and will reward you in so many ways. And so, Swami, just as we wrap up the episode today, what's one thing you want to make sure listeners know about? I was going to say meditation, but really it's yoga, it's meditation, it's breath work, it's all of these holistic tools, which will help them take control of their own personal health and well-being.
Yeah, I think it's just to realize that your own happiness doesn't come from anything outside of yourself. You know, the happiness is within. And I know that's a bit of a cliche, but it's actually a true cliche. You know, as long as you think you're going to be happy because of anything outside of yourself, you'll never really be happy for a long time. So I think it's important to realize that if you're peaceful within yourself, bad things are still going to happen. Everyone has problems in life, but you'll be able to deal with it. And I think that's the important thing.
Oh, I think that's that's really pure words of wisdom there. Absolutely. It's all within us, and we can keep, drawing our attention to other things to keep trying to find happiness, but ultimately it's all within. And I think just being alert of our feelings, the sensations, energy, thoughts, it brings us back to ourselves. And so you have, you've got your courses, you've got your new book as well. So are you teaching classes for is it just yoga teachers at the moment, or are you teaching classes that anyone could join?
Well, I've been teaching a series of, I'm teaching Mudra courses that anyone can join. I have this book, which is called Mudras for Modern Life. And that's actually one of my, along with The Power of Breath, I would say those are my two most popular books. So I've been teaching Mudra courses, and I've started doing some Kriya workshops as well. Also with the mudras, if people follow me on Instagram, I've been putting up little mini videos of the different mudras in my book, because it's nice to look at a picture, but how did you actually get your hands in that position? So
yeah. Good. So remind me of your Instagram. Is it under your name, or is it under your?
It's yoga_mentor.
Yoga_mentor. Wonderful. We'll put all the links with the episode. And just tell us, so your new book is now available. So sitting comfortably, preparing the mind and body for peaceful meditation. We'll put the link into the text. But where is that? On Amazon? Is that on all the online platforms? You can purchase that?
Yeah, all my books are on Amazon.
Yeah.
And other online platforms as well.
Brilliant. Okay, excellent. Well, thank you so much for your time. And it's great to connect with you after quite some time. And wishing you well, Swami. Thank you very much.